Okay, there you can see replacement parts C21A. That they give you plenty of it too. I got quite a bit of it here, but I'm going to go ahead and it loops around this loop here. So I'm going to leave a little extra. And then it comes across the top, like so. Now here it gets a little tricky because it comes out under the edge. We're going to cut that in a minute, but you need to leave plenty. And comes back around, so they give you plenty. So there's our strip. Now we'll go ahead and get that glued on. Okay, as you can see up on top here, I put some tape, and I put it back just a little ways because I don't want to get any glue on the surface there that's going to show. Now this has a direction to it. There's a bigger lip and a smaller lip, and it kind of swoops up. So anyway, the bigger lip goes to the outside. I clean this off. Now when I get to this corner, the chrome actually comes over the end of this. So I take and I slit it there, because I'm going to twist it as I go on, and then I'm going to make 4 corners like that. So I cut a 45-degree out of each corner, and I'm going to put glue on that later, but I'm going to come across and glue all the way across here, then we'll stick this on. Okay, I put the glue all the way across there, and I'm going to start with my cut part, and I'm going to get it started, and then I'm going to go across. And it just sets on top of that, so this is a contact type cement, so I want to get some on both sides. Let it dry a little bit, then I'll squish it together good. Okay, back in this back corner, I'll move so you can see it. Back in this back corner, it's got to be kind of pressed into the corners like that. Well, a pair of end snips will do it, but anyway, right there's a screw. So I'm going to take and I'm going to cut out around that screw a little bit. Because otherwise you have a real hard time pressing it through that rubber and getting it started. So that looks pretty good. Cut a little bit across the top. Yeah, and I've got that glued on there real good, so I'm real happy with that. Now the next step here is I take my door or my window frame. I've got it here, and I get it started down straight, and I'm real careful not to, you got to get it past the lock before it'll even go in, and then it goes right down. Now when it gets to this point, and I don't know if you can see it back here, I'm going to get a different angle. Let me take the camera here. But right here you can see that that has got interference to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist the frame by bending this in. And as I bend that in, I'll be able to push it past that rubber. And I'm going to put a squirt or two of liquid soap on there so it slips right on down. Okay, like I said, I'm going to put a little squirt of soap on that. Looks like, alright, got plenty of that on there. Alright, and then I'm going to get a pry bar. And as I go down, usually you can get it past that rubber and pull it on down. It's slipping in nicely. And I think right about, I'm going to go inside there, gain some interference, but see it slipped in there nicely. And I'm going to leave the front out just a tad. Okay, so the frame's in. Okay, right in here you'll see this gets a beveled washer. Of course the bevel goes up, and then it gets a small 3/8 bolt. Some of these have spacers on them, so some of them are different size bolts when you put them back in. But anyway, I'm going to get that started. Okay, you'll notice all the tape that I've got on there. And that was basically to protect around the edge here. I can pull that off now that I got the trim in. That rubber does a pretty good job of protecting things, but anyway, we got the frame in on the one end, got both of these bolts, and I leave them all loose, but they're both started over here. Okay, right here I haven't put any bolts in yet, and you know I cut my little 45-degree angles. That's going to wrap around like that, and I'm going to have to cut that off a little bit. You'll see I've got it a little bit long there, and I'm guessing about that much, and that should be able to go. Well, I'll cut a little bit more. Doesn't hurt on the inside. The wood covers it and you don't see it. But what I've got here is I've got some good 3M black weather strip adhesive, and I'm going to lift this up just a tad, and I'm going to put some under that edge. Like that, and then I'm going to fold my molding. I'm going to take and fold this molding kind of as it goes there. And I'm going to go ahead and shove that window down, and that'll lock that into place. I'm going to let that dry before I do anything else. Okay, you can see my screw there. That's where I cut that rubber trim on the back, and I'm going to kind of carefully get into that hole, and that is a pointed screw, and hopefully that'll get started there. Yeah, it is getting started. Okay, before I tighten that all the way down, I went ahead and put my beveled washer in here, and I put my bevel washer in here, and I put my bolts. These are longer ones. This one actually is a little longer than the bottom. I marked on here the spacers, and if you get the spacers back in the right place, this door was wrecked at one point and rebuilt because they had re-drilled these holes at different places. But I start at one end and pull it forward and press it into this rubber at the back. Okay, the next step is we're going to put the sweeper on. And before I do that, this door was wrecked and replaced. They did not have the rubber behind this, so everything was shifted this way, which it will do. And so they had over drilled the original holes, and I'm afraid my rivets will not hold in there. So I've drilled new holes across here, but because that rubber's in there, you got to take a drill and run it through there a little bit and clean that rubber out, because that rubber trim will be behind there. This is what I call the sweeper. You punch holes in it, and then you bend these tabs down, and that's how it's held on to this metal strip. You can see here how they really over drilled these, so I've drilled some new ones there that match up to how it should be. And then I'm going to go ahead and put rivets in here, and these rivets will hold this up here, hopefully. Okay. You have to be real careful when you're drilling those holes because the back slopes down here, so you're just right there where you could nick it. And that's aluminum on the outside, so you won't want to do that. It'd be easy to go through it. Now once again, I'm working from this side to this side. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one first and work my way on across. I've got it in there nice and firm. And I should pop rivet. Okay, and that's on good. The trim's on good on the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and work my way on across there and get all those pop rivets down. Okay, I'm going to zoom in so you can see that a little better. You can see the pop rivets all along there. And you can see those big old holes. Somebody had drilled them out. There was a lot of body putty on this, and I'm going to go ahead and go to the other side here. Now you can see that rubber is right where it should be, and that's all pulled down nice and even. So we've got a good shot on that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to finish tightening up the 2 bolts on this side, right in there. Helps if I got the wrench the right direction. You know, I found on most cars, and I've only taken a couple of them apart, but there's never, I think this localizes everything back here, those do, and there's one down here, so there's 2 there, and there's one down here at the bottom, and I'm not going to make you watch me tighten those. Okay, now we got the glass, and of course it is shorter on this end than this end, and this flat part goes out, not that's the end the Allen screws go in. But you can put that in the bottom of the door, and if you're careful not to scratch it, it goes right up in there. So, okay, I got that in there after some finagling. And what you want to do is get it in the rail on the front or the back side of the door, and I've got it in there. And then usually you can slip it past and get it started there. You can see I've got her started. You got to be careful with this because this is new trim in here, so but I'm going to bring that up to the top, and then I'm going to tape it real good. Like such, and like such. I don't think that would fall down with that new trim, but anyway, that's all in there where it should be. And next we're going to install the bottom of that door sweep. Now the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this in, and you're not going to be able to see it very well. It holds from there to there. The end of the molding doesn't have a support, and that's the U-channel that goes around the window. So it needs a support in there, and it gets 2 of these, I believe they're 3BA screws with the big washers on there, and also too I drilled a hole in there, and I pre-drilled it on the bench. That butts up against the end of this right in there, and down here at the bottom you've got what I call a rabbit-eared rivet. It's split, and you just squeeze those with a thin pair of plumber's pliers, and it spreads these wings out and holds it. But there is torque on these coming up and down, so those rivets are meant to hold that. So anyway, I'm going to put that in there, and before I do, I'm going to hit it with a little bit of contact adhesive, so that, or weather strip adhesive, so that I get a good strong fit on the bottom and the window doesn't pull it down as I use. Okay, I got my support in there, and I tighten the top 3BA bolt. And now what I'm going to do is, so that I press that window edge back into that track there, I'm going to run this down till it's right at the bottom. And it should hold that in the track until, and that will mean it's nice and straight. Now the other thing is I'm going to once again secure it in that position. I put a little bit more slant to my door so it shouldn't fall down. And I'm going to go ahead now and tighten that bottom bolt on that bracket now that it's lined up the way it should be. The top matches up with this piece, so it kind of aligns itself, but the bottom you want to bring the window down and get everything straight and then tighten the bottom one. Okay, this gets a little tricky to put this back on, but we're working on this, which has friction plates in it. And once again, there's a big washer, goes on the back side. There's one of those plates. There's a spacer that goes in the middle. And then you get your other one and put it up there, and there is a cupped washer on the bottom of that, which seems to be giving me some issues. There we go. Maybe it'll all hold up there in place. Okay. And then I get the springed washer. Now I put the cup washer on backwards. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Like that. And that spring sets in there. That retains the spring. And the cup washer, the other washer. It gets a spacer that goes up in between about everything through the washer and everything. Make sure I get that up there. Then that washer is a big washer and it will slip over the top. And then there's a smaller washer, and then you got a what I call a half nut, and that'll hold that all together. Now there's these little brass washers, and two of them go underneath. Two of them go underneath these plates, so they go like that. Okay, and then there's a regular washer on top. So I'll get the other two washers. There's the two brass washers. They'll go on top of those brass pieces there, and then I'll get the... Okay, I went through this pretty fast because I put these in a couple of months ago so they would kind of take form, and I was going to see if I needed to... those don't take a lot to tighten. There's two half nuts, one's a lock nut. I tightened all that up, but I went through that before in pretty much detail. And I wanted to check, and yeah, it is nice and snug so it won't get blown around in the wind. The other thing I did is in the video, I did not put my little spring washer in there. Those get a spring washer. I couldn't find them when I did the other video. It's one of those that's kind of flary. I don't know what you call it, but then you got this guy that goes on there. Just like that. And that little flared washer, whatever you want to call it, You want to be careful with these. I got these all polished and redone, so that doesn't need to be overdone. But yeah, those frames are stainless steel, and you can polish them. I believe that I had to chrome, that I had to send out in chrome as well as the bolt. But there's that part all cleaned up. I've got to let that window dry a little while, and then we'll talk about putting the electric motor. Okay, I put the motor drive in there, and mostly because these little rubber things down here at the bottom were way off, and I usually put them back where they go. But what I do is I put this column in, and I fasten it in, and this thing has to go in there to get screwed. But I make sure the distance here at the top between the window is the same as the bottom down here. So I take something and I measure that, so I make it straight up and down. Additionally, I make sure from the window each point here is at a equal distance from the window. It's loose right now because I've taken some of it apart, but it sets about like that, and you can see it's real square to the window. Anyway, I'm going to take all that out and I'll show you how to put it. Okay, these are what the motor drive set on, and they get a big thick washer back on the back side of them. They get a spacer, which actually I'm going to put that in from the back side, but they get a spacer in there. It slips in, and these need to be in pretty good condition because that washer goes in there and it just fits right in there. And then there's a T-bolt. It's got the machined head on it, goes in there. And there you go. I've got two of them ready to go, and I'll move on over to the door. Okay, these are what I'm talking about. You'll see there I marked them. And that way I can pull them back into position and get them right where they go and tighten them down. That's why I put all that stuff in there to realign the window, so and the frame, so you want everything straight. Okay, I got everything out of there, and what I'm going to do is, the book says you can take this darn thing out of there with the motor in there, but I find it quite difficult. I've got the studs in here, and since I put sealant around here, they fairly well hold in there. And I'm going to go ahead and set that down on those rubber things, now that I've got them aligned the way I want them. Back one's actually towards us. Now this thing here is the drive chain, and we're going to put it around, but we want to make sure where the window connects here, and this goes on like that, so the window is connected on this side, and you can tell one side is thicker than the other, and you want to make sure you get those tensioners in there. And anyway, we're going to shove that on up in there. And get those nuts back up right like that. We're going to start the chain on there. And I'm going to get that lined up with those studs. Get something off there. Get that lined up there with the studs. Like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the nuts on that bottom. This chain here has to be a little bit loose, so you don't want it real tight. So, and I've got this connector to the window so that I can, when I drop the window down, I'll have room to connect that onto there. Now it is on this side where you connect to the window, and you can see this is off-centered there. Okay, you couldn't see this, but I pushed this up, and actually it goes both directions. They're kind of slotted holes, but I got some slack here in the chain, and I've got these pretty well lined up where they go and straight up and down. So now I'm going to put this side piece in. Okay, after a little fiddling and pushing that way, this way over here, I was able to get that in. There's a U in there that has to be lined up, but that has the nuts on the back of it. This has the nuts on the back of it up here. And anyway, I'm going to go get my nuts and bolts for that. That does go on the front, so I'll have to move that over. Okay, I've went ahead and I've just started all of these. These are what I call a thin head screw. They've got a pointy end. There's a washer and a nut on the back of them. These have a washer and a nut. They're, I don't know if you can see them there. They're what I call a V-head screw. They go in a concave deal there. There's two 7/16 inch with a washer on them, and this gets a 3, I think that's a 3BA, and one of those fancy beveled washers. The armrest goes in here, so we won't put anything in there right now. What we're going to do is this has a curvature to it, and you want this part down so the angle goes up. Basically, that goes in there like that. And the next thing I'm going to do is put this in. And this goes right there as a stop against, to keep that from pulling up. And that gets a washer and a nut on it. So I'm going to go ahead and put those on. A little trick I use on these is I shove some masking tape down there and I ball it up so the sticky side's out. Then when I put that nut in there, it's in there good and tight, and I can go ahead and get it in that hole and get it started on the stud. We're going to adjust that tab in a minute. Usually I put them just about all the way up. But I need to be able to slide this down to get this one in. You can slide it around and make it easy. But that's a stop. When the window goes down, this unit wants to be pulled up. It's not held by anything on the bottom. It just sits on those rubbers. So this tab right here butts up against the piece of metal on the bush and stops it as the window comes down from coming up. So anyway, we've got that in there. I'm going to go ahead and put the top one in. Okay, so I'm going to shove the bushing up now so it lines up with those holes. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten that top one. And then I'm going to put these into in here. But the into, they get two washers underneath as a spacer, and then one on the outside on the nut. But I'm going to put those behind the bush there, slip them in back there. Okay, I'm going to use an ice pick to kind of center everything. And then I'm going to put my washer and bolt on. And that gets all of that kind of together. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other tie. Two spacers. I did mark them on my door so I would know and not forget to put them in when I got the doors back. Okay, now what I'm going to do is this bottom tab, I actually moved it up a little bit and snugged it up. But I'm going to take a screwdriver there and I'm going to get it right where I want it. And it goes right up against that brace. It can have a little bit of space, but I'm going to hold it so it doesn't spin on me there as I tighten that. And I've already tightened those. Just checking, and I've tightened the one in there. Yeah. So we're all set up there, and I don't know exactly. These motors are noisier than crazy. I think that's to insulate them, the rubber and the rubber here to insulate them from the frame of the car, which is what Rolls-Royce always did. But, you know, from this standpoint, these motors are noisy as... Okay, you're not going to be able to see this in the car, but you can see right there I've got this Allen screw in. It looks like this. Okay, that connects, those two holes there connect to this back plate on the window. So you're not going to be able to see this because I'm going to have to reach in there and put those Allen screws in from the outside coming up. And I'll get those in there, and that pretty well finishes the mechanisms for the electric one. Okay, these bumpers go in here, and the window as it comes down rides against the top of these. And these get a bolt. These go in the bottom two holes there. So I'm going to go ahead and put those two bolts on, and they get a standard washer and a standard nut. Okay, I'm going to run a little test here. Move this back a little bit so you can see the window actually go up and down. But what I'm going to do here is you got to use a pretty good battery charger. This is 50 amps, but that's up. That's down. Bring it down to the stops. I'm going to leave it right there, but it runs real nice. Okay, this gets a drip rail in here, and it's got a Phillips screw. I know this was a mod they did later to these to keep water from dripping down out of these. And anyway, this one's cut to fit, and the one I took out. You need to make sure you get this hole lined up, and we'll talk more about that, but that's where the wood piece on the outside gets bolted in. So I'm going to go ahead and put that screw in right there. Okay, I got that screw in there, and this is cut in a special pattern. It has a dip back down here in the back to miss this bracket. And it guides the water over here to where it comes down and goes back, I guess, to the back drain. It all drains to the back hole there. If you're on level ground, I guess that works. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and put the plate on the outside. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is put this black strip on here. It just sets in there, so anyway, I went ahead and set it in there. And it gets these thin head screws with a standard washer. And these bottom ones, the wood trim sets on. You know, before I put that on there, I'm going to make another comment. This right here, if it's been taken loose, which it can be, this is the middle holder for the wood when you put the wood on. So you got to make sure that hole lines up there. If you can't get a screw in it easily, then you need to move the black piece around. And it seems that I've got that one started, so we should be good there. I'm going to go ahead and put the other four, two here and two there. Okay, I went ahead and snugged up the two screws over here, two over here, and this one. Now the wood, there's a bracket on the bottom of them that will be held on by, it pops in at the top, and then it's held by those three screws at the bottom. So I didn't tighten these three very tight. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in more as a place keeper. It has an arm on it, a pin, a washer, a split pin, and or a cotter pin, and that goes in behind right there and has 4 7/16 inch Newton U-bolts in it. So I'm going to go ahead and get those started, and these go on, and they're basically they're off center, and the thicker part goes to the inside, and they go on this side, and this goes on the inside. I'm going to put it there. There's adjustment on those back and forth to get the right tension, and it's kind of a dampener for the door, but we'll have to adjust those after we get it on the car. Yeah, these dampers go inside there, and I'm going to put it on as a place keeper because there's an arm that gets put on them right here and goes out through the door. This one happens to be a back door. It's got a big lump on it The front doors have a shaft on them, so there is a difference. But back door left and right are the same, front door left and right are the same, and they get a short screw there, and if the screw's too long, they will go through and interfere. So they have to be the right size, and they get a standard washer. Okay, I got these 4 on there, and they are very short. You can't use long ones or they'll go back into the mechanism, and I'm just going to cinch those down with a simple tool, and that takes care of that part. Okay, one of the last things I'm going to do here is this is a damper. It's got a surface on it that pushes out on that door. I guess it doesn't sound. I'm not real sure what that thing does. But it gets a 3BA here, and I'm going to use a driver here so I can push that on in. Actually, it's pretty damn close, so I might just be able to get it started. Hole there. There's the hole. Oh, I thought I had. Well, I'm going to get another tool. Yeah, these dampers go inside there, and I'm going to put it on as a place keeper because there's an arm that gets put on them right here and goes out through the door. This one happens to be a back door. It's got a big lump on it. The front doors have a shaft on them, so there is a difference. But back door left and right are the same, front door left and right are the same, and they get a short screw there, and if the screw's too long, they will go through and interfere. So they have to be the right size, and they get a standard washer. Okay, I got that started, and I hope you can see this. I'm going to spring out on that a little bit as I tighten it down so it doesn't bind on the door. That thing's spring loaded, so it takes the right length 3BA bolt, and there we go. Okay, another just thing I did as a place keeper is I put that on there, and I hope you can see that okay, but these screws have a chrome head on them, and they've kind of got a bevel top, and they're V on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and that's the light switch. I'm going to get a little smaller screwdriver because I don't want to scratch that. I got that CAD plated, or not CAD plated, but chrome plated.